Namaste and welcome. When we say Jai Hind, that word Hind is very important because that entire coinage is attributed to one gentleman who perhaps is the most unrewarded and unsung of our heroes until recently. Even now, we fondly remember him, but we still have not solved the mystery behind his disappearance. And I say disappearance with great responsibility because I am one of those who increasingly is led to believe that 18th of August 1945 was not the date of his death. He lived beyond, and like many and some of my friends who are sitting next to me, I very, very strongly believe he did come back to Bharat. But that's a different story. But what was done with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his legacy? Was there a deliberate attempt to A, belittle him, to ensure that he is wiped off the map and memory of an Azad Hind or an Azad Bharat? These are questions which always rancor. And with me are two of my friends, I'd like to call them that, people who've been relentless at least over the last 2.5 decades in this pursuit, perhaps a mission on Netaji. And that's why they call themselves Mission Netaji. And this is their latest contribution, the Bose Deception Declassified. And why do they call it declassified? Because they have fresh evidence to prove that what was claimed happened on the 18th of August 1945 in Formosa, in Taiwan, that air crash, perhaps never had Subhash Chandra Bose as a part of it. And even if he was part of it, he never succumbed. Chandrachur Ghose and Anuj Dhar, namaste.
Namaste. I'm very happy to be here again.
It's always great to be with you.
Thank you. And this is yet another contribution of yours in a long list of what you have tried to do over the last many years. But there seems to be a departure in this one. I must admit, I have not read it fully, but what I have perused shows that you are trying to arrive at Subhash Bose, but you're also looking at some of the characters around Netaji at that time,
Right.
to establish or to question the narrative that was built. So let's start with that, Chandrachur. How did this happen? Yeah.
Well,
and why call it the Bose deception?
Exactly. That's where the answer lies. We call it deception because normally you would consider such a thing and find it funny, but this is anything but funny. Bose escaped the Southeast Asian War theatre by a deception plan. So there was a hoax created, a smokescreen created with the help of the Japanese, and he escaped. But after that, when it was time for him to come back, it was the government of India which created a bigger deception plan with all its state machinery and everything, and completely marginalized him so that no information about his so-called death reaches the people. What we have shown in this book, Anand, is that right from 1946-47, when the independent India's government had also not taken its oath, when there was the interim government before the British exited. From that time onwards, there has been lie after lie after lie after lie, deliberately created falsehoods, stories, narratives, only to support that one claim by the government of India, by India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, that Bose died in the plane crash. So it was such a complex web of characters, plots, and places that it needed a very patient treatment, and we had readers, the common reader in mind this time. In a previous book, Conundrum, we just wrote for ourselves. I mean, we just...
No, that was really exhaustive. I've read through that. And somewhere I must honestly, I must admit that when I read through Conundrum and also certain passages which we also in earlier broadcasts talked about, especially the calligraphic comparisons, that's when I will say I became truly a convert in trying to say that Netaji lived beyond the 18th of August 1945.
Right.
There is a lot more that I'd like to believe. I also went to the Sangrahalaya in Ayodhya and I saw a lot of things there, although that access is very limited, which further convinced me. But yeah.
It was exhaustive.
But that was not something that everybody, the common viewer could, or the ordinary, would actually sit through, because it's quite voluminous.
So, I mean, taking from your word exhaustive, it was, for the reader, it was exhausting also. So, we realized that we have to give the readers something which is straightforward, no complex literary act, but factual, hits at the heart of the matter, and completely uncovers the layers of deception. So we, the option with us, in front of us, was that we could go ballistic again, collect all materials from all over the world and try to show how much evidence is there. But that's what we chose not to do. This time we focused in response to a communique issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2017. The Minister of Home Affairs, on the face of criticism, had declared that they were merely following a cabinet decision taken by the Manmohan Singh government. But if any credible input comes in, new information is revealed, they are willing to reopen the investigation. So when we rummaged through the pages of these 1300 files, we found new information after new information after new information, because these files were not available earlier. Very few of them were.
So the declassified files. So
Only
you went through the
declassified. So our
declassified
point
files.
is, in writing this book, is primarily to tell the government that you had this information all this while, and we have taken them out. We are serving it to you in a platter. Now there is no excuse for not acting.
एक बात before we come back to the book, Anuj, have you been you're a journalist yourself, so let me ask you this. Netaji was somebody the leftward champion, because he started the forward bloc and he had a certain level of communist ideals in him, would say. He was past president of the Congress party also, and the current disposition with the BJP is very nationalist, and he was nationalist. So isn't it in everybody's interest to actually uphold his legacy rather than have him dead 18th of August 1900? So have you been able to answer the question ki what's it that ki wo chupa raha hai? Why? If there is so much evidence.
It doesn't serve their interest. That's why.
Can I answer that question?
It doesn't serve their interest. Why? Why would you say that?
No, because it like in a sense that when you talk of Netaji, I mean, this is the issue of the Netaji's death, because you know well that we espouse two causes. When we go around, talk to people, media interaction, otherwise, we espouse the cause number one is that we have sufficient information now available through declassified files and other information on record that India is becoming free had to do with Subhash Chandra Bose, and so Ahimsa had a minimal role. So to recall, to paraphrase Clement Attlee's famous words.
Correct.
So that is our first. That's the reason why we are looking for Subhash. Otherwise, why would I be keen about? There are so many freedom fighters, but then Netaji stood, as far as I'm concerned, he's concerned number one. So he was a person, the reason number one for our freedom, independence. And the second, the issue of his death. So they are interlinked. So the moment you bring out the truth about Netaji's, fate, that he never died. He was, in fact, the whole idea about his being alive in India is so striking and so, I mean, it would evoke such emotions across the country. And eventually the whole focus would come around to Netaji's life and times. And will come to the single point that India became free because of him, and that credit was transferred to Gandhiji's name. So that is where the communists who had an alliance with they view Subhash Bose differently, but especially the Congress party won't be able to take it. So Congress has an
तो ये legacy वाला issue हो जाएगा कि भाई if British Prime Minister कह रहा है कि भाई it was नेताजी बोस, अगर उसको हमने मान लिया तो फिर जिसके अराउंड ये पूरा नेहरूवियन मूवमेंट आगे जाके कोऑप्ट करके आगे लेके चले गए, so that will fall apart.
That will fall apart.
It's quite interesting that even with Savarkar, similar aspect of discrediting him. So any other person, ideology, thought process that could have emerged as a political challenge in Azad Hind seems to have been discredited. Do you agree, disagree? I know I'm digressing a bit.
No, I agree. This is the primary example.
That's the core of the whole matter. You have to remember, when we say these, we have to remember a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to say in response to your previous question is that there is a dictum which says, what belongs to everybody belongs to nobody.
Nobody.
So that's one philosophical aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, I mean, if you remember Netaji's biography, which I wrote, I called him an inconvenient nationalist.
Correct.
He's inconvenient to everybody. And because of the position. And now I come to the main point that when you go back to Netaji's life, and inevitably from this book you have to go back there, he's the only person in the whole history of modern India who electorally defeated Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes.
And that is an insult which the Congress is not willing to accept. They have not forgotten Tripuri in 1939, when he could defeat snub Gandhi's personal candidate And Gandhi had to say that Sitaramaya's defeat is my defeat. So that is not something which the Congress is going to accept lying down.
No, but I think a lot has happened after that. The Congress has gone back on a lot of Mahatma Gandhi's vision itself. They've gone back on a lot of their own leaders, successive leaders. They've contradicting, and today they are also contradicting those positions. But 75, 76 years down the line, why? And if it was the Congress's inconvenience, it should be to the current disposition's convenience politically.
Right.
So, why have they not gone through these files and said, all right, we will not declare Subhash Babu dead?
They should. I think it is a bit of a short-sightedness on their behalf, because probably they are still stuck with a small electoral incident of 1940, where Subhash Bose's forward bloc went against or contested the Hindu Mahasabha and did a temporary alliance with the Muslim League for specific reasons. I am not going into the reasons, but it is something that probably they have not been able to understand, because other than that, I don't find any leader of any spectrum, of any political ideological spectrum, who is teaching kids in his family, making it mandatory, compulsory to read Ramayana or Mahabharata, to learn bhajans, to recite Sanskrit stotras. Forget, let alone a leftist leader. I don't even find any so-called Hindutvadi or nationalist leader doing that. So, being a leftist leader, he was definitely not a communist, never.
Yeah.
He
was leftist, yeah, but
his
he's not a
socialism was only restricted to the economic part of it. Culturally, he was more nationalist than many of the nationalist leaders.
He was a hard Hindu, if I may say that.
Absolutely.
Very deeply spiritual also.
By his practice, he was a very, very...
And the conundrum talks about his later experiments with Tantra, etc. also.
Absolutely. Then that started from 1927 when he was in jail. So, everybody was doing a lot of other things. He was, whenever he went to prison, he would put up a cloth, make his puja room and do his Tantra sadhana there.
And not too many of the saints or sadhus or spiritual actually sit on a tiger skin. And Netaji
Correct.
used to do that. So, that means you have actually developed a certain superior level of sadhana.
So, all that has made him an anathema with the leftists, and his alliance or his understanding with Hitler, with Axis powers, that has also made them an anathema.
But he was not always a votary of Hitler.
He was never.
At
He was
Dresden,
never.
in his lectures and his speeches and all that in Dresden.
He stood for India first.
In private life, all his
I-
comrades have attested to the fact that he called Hitler a madman.
I mean, if I could make a comparison, today the entire Western world is calling President Putin a war criminal. So they are not going to touch him. He's buddies. He's a buddy with us. He's India's friend. So because our national interests are guiding us in that direction. So whichever country is in our, to have a relation with any country is going to serve our interests. So we'll have friendship with that country. We are Talibans. I think we are back in
So
the
that
game
strategic autonomy that we are pursuing
Taliban,
today.
Yeah, the North Korea is our friend. So whatever you may think of Kim Il Sung as he may be a bad guy for all I care, but he's a friend of India. So we are all concerned with the friendship of national interest.
National interest.
So
So,
that
you
was
believe that
Subhash Bose did.
Netaji's association with Hitler also was
So national interest.
Yeah,
National interest,
but
absolutely.
that's not
And
the
like it or not, it may not be a very popular thing to say in the West, but then the Allied powers were not in for India's freedom. Churchill was sitting and abusing us Hindus, especially in
Correct.
left, right, and center. It was the Axis forces who helped us in our freedom struggle.
True. The Axis
Germany
forces
did.
also came to our aid in the subsequent wars also. That's also
Even
chronicled.
previously in the First World War, Germany's support to India was there in First World War before Hitler was also there. So Germany was backing us. Japan backed us before Subhash Bose also. They helped, sheltered and others also. So we got help from the Axis forces, especially both Germany and Japan. So we should have no qualms in saying so. Just as today we are getting any assistance or help or whatever, we are having dealings with Taliban and Afghanistan. We have been dealing with the North Koreans, and we are friends with Russia. So why should we have any problem in talking about
But the
Second World War?
current Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has been a very ardent admirer, votary, and also he's given perhaps one of the few Prime Ministers who's given Netaji's credit, saying
Absolutely.
that I credit him.
Only two of them, Morarji Bhai and
Morarji Desai,
Gujarat,
correct. I
and
was about
Subhash
to come
Bose.
to that only. But Morarji Desai also at that time was not so mass communicated as much as and oft repeated as much
Definitely.
as perhaps PM Narendra Modi. And even recently in Mann Ki Baat, he made a mention of Subhash Babu.
Right.
So he has done that. But what I wanted to understand is, he's the one who's actually put Netaji there in place of King George.
Absolutely.
And said, okay, he'll be there at the head of the Kartavya Path. And he also enlightened that we have
He
to
has
fight.
released those files, and
Yeah.
after reading the
He's
files,
released
they
these
written the
files.
book.
So So then why would they not go on overdrive to ensure to discredit all of that and then?
Well, I can recall one conversation I had with somebody. Let me not name that person, but this conversation was on the ground. Look, we had this gentleman who was on the other side. He said, look, the Article 370 removal was on our radar for a pretty long time, 50, 60 years. Atalji tried, didn't happen. Modi ji came to power. It took us some time, couple of years. So what happens when you have a target set, but then you have to keep in mind the circumstances in the world situation. More so when something you are going to do is going to have effect all over the world. He said, this issue has come to us only now. So hold your horses. So that was one conversation I had with somebody.
So hold your horses. But do you not see wherever you go, increasingly more people want to know more about Netaji?
Absolutely.
Of course.
And the more you tell them, the more they want this entire unsolved mystery to be solved.
Not just more people, and the much is more, we are delighted that it's the younger people who are more interested, not the elderly or the northern middle age. Younger people, we go give our lectures like IITs we have done. He's going to IIT next, Roorkee now. So IITs, the students sit for hours and hours and hours. I have done in America, north, east to west coast. 4 or 5 hours, people are sitting in Los Angeles and New Jersey and other places. So people are very keen, not just in India, even outside the country.
But because there is so much more that that is there. There's so much to his persona.
This is not a hunch. What he said is not a hunch. I've checked it statistically. I have checked my social media followers. And that's not a small number, not a very big one, but not a small number either. And I have seen 75% of the followers fall in the age bracket of 15 to 25. So you see the interest, the keenness to learn, to understand and to look forward. So I think that is the young voters group, people who are just in the next election are going to step into the voting age. And what we have been trying is to do something which nobody else has tried, to make Subhash Bose an electoral issue. Because till the time he becomes electorally relevant, I don't think political parties are going to get interested. I'm not talking only about BJP or similar parties, but I am also talking about the other parties.
But one more thing I want to add, some of the great inputs in writing this book have come to some very young people. First year student, like this Shidai story came from Rathi, this Siddharth, and another young friend of Pratham, he was very helpful in locating some records. So younger people are very much helpful, not only at the reading our books and talking,
but they're doing research.
But they're doing research and helping us by
whenever they stumble upon information,
they forward, they share
with you. Sharing
so they help.
But why should it be an electoral issue? Why do you believe that something which is so important, so intrinsic, such a core? See, for me, I'm talking out of my position as an interviewer, but as a person, I don't think Veer Savarkar should be a political issue. I don't believe Lal Bahadur Shastri ji should be a political issue or an electoral issue. Nor do I believe Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose should be an electoral. Why do you say that it has to be an electoral issue for people to bring it front and center? It's our history.
What you're saying is in a perfect world.
Isn't it
we don't live in a perfect
isn't
world.
it intrinsic to our own Bharatiyata, who we are as Bharatiya,
Yes.
defined by all these people, including Mahatma Gandhi?
There I agree with you, but there are a couple of reasons why I said so and why I believe so. First thing is, when I say he should be electorally relevant, now today's debate, you see, there is a lot of debate regarding the opinions and the views, the visions of Ambedkar, Gandhiji, Nehru, even Savarkar. We find even some people like Savitribai Phule, Kamaladevi Chattopadhyay, and all sorts of people are being discussed in terms of political ideology, programs, vision for India. And it is a very, very sad feeling to see Subhash Bose's name, Netaji's name absent there. And that is happening because he is not electorally or politically relevant. We are trying to mainstream him. Modi ji has done a great thing by setting up the statue. He has made a statement. He has done renamed Andamans and he has made a statement. He has made Netaji back into the political relevance. But that is a process which is yet to be completed, number one. Number two, why I feel he has to be electorally relevant is we realize we are not irresponsible researchers or irresponsible campaigners. We know what the impact will be of opening of all the files and coming out with the full truth. Now there has to be no political party is sitting there to do charity or to preach morality. There, at the end of the day, they have to come back to the power. There has to be a power equation.
but इसमें एक कहा जाता है ना, if you read the conundrum, तो इस हमाम में तो सब नंगे हैं. So then who are you going to point fingers at?
Look, we are here to show the way that it can be done. It can be done, and we are more than happy to show the way how it can be done. In fact, the last chapter इसमें जो है ना, हमने इसमें बहुत साफ-साफ दिखाया है कि आप hypothesis छोड़ दीजिए, speculation छोड़ दीजिए. If you really want to do this, there are ways of doing it without creating any trouble for anyone. And it's a journey. It's not going to happen. I mean, from this part to the next part, if he did not die, question will come up. That if he did not die in the plane crash, what happened to him?
Yes, sir,
That part can be dealt with
The point that
later.
is making, let me just give an example what we have discussed. For example, there's a fringe element on social media. They keep bracketing, Subhash Chandra Bose with others, that he was somebody who was trying to appease the Muslim community and all.
Yeah.
Forget everything. We got given some data. I don't want to discuss that. But one point I just want to highlight here, since he referred to that particular aspect of the book, is that there was an assessment made by the CSDIC. CSDIC was a body of they were interrogating people in Germany and also in India from the Axis forces, that side. So they were that was the authority. The CSDIC India was interrogating the INM and people linked to Subhash Bose. So they were the people who knew the best about this person, so to speak. So that thing was brought before them, and their assessment was that Subhash Chandra Bose is biased in favor of the Hindus. So that is the assessment made by the British.
Okay.
On the other hand, you have fringe elements on Twitter and Facebook. They are making these kind of non-statements. Subhash was trying to appease the Muslims. No, I'm so sorry.
Though I think the appease the Muslims also came because of the tie-up with the Muslim League. 1940. It stems from there, and I think other narratives to discredit him. There are narratives to discredit you guys also, that you are nothing but a bunch of profiteers who are recycling the same amount of research again and again just to profit out of it.
And still
so
reading.
how would you respond with that? To that?
No, I take, I say with pride that both of us have been described as RSS agents. Actually, Gana Shakti actually ran an article in which they called me an agent of RSS. I went to the RSS Mukherjee. I told them, look, I've been declared an agent, so I don't mind being called an agent, but please, make some arrangement for money. Money I need. So people, if I look back and I recall why it happened, see, I think in my case, I can tell you how it started and why it happened. I am a Delhi wala, born, brought up Delhi, and I have a little bit of a Haryanvi and Hindi, Punjabi accent to speaking in English. But it sounds very crude to Bengalis, by the way. So I keep going to Calcutta, Bengal, and I have been very outspoken, upfront about India becoming free because of Subhash Bose, not because of Gandhiji. And you see, I even wear a T-shirt which says minimal very clearly.
Correct.
That is something which people in Bengal, the very polished, sophisticated people say they don't like my, putting in very crude words. So this is one way of getting back at me. If you don't like somebody, you want to kill a dog, give a dog a bad name. So just to, give me a bad mouth against me. So to call somebody an RSS agent is a gali, it is a word of abuse. So this is how it started. And there are people, every day.
But to call somebody a member of the RSS or
I have no problem.
RSS,
I'm very happy and delighted, in fact.
It should not be an abuse. But the other aspect is to that you are trying to milk an unsolved mystery for your own profiteering. You are not doing it in the larger interest of Bharat. That is something, and that's why one of the questions is why is the family not backing you? Why is the family itself coming out and saying these people are nothing but, and trying to discredit you? So who do we believe? Do we believe Netaji's family members or his kith and kin and descendants, or do we believe a bunch of researchers who are on mission Netaji?
Family is one side, but this thing I must tell. Let me get.
I know I can ask you this question.
Of course, sure.
Because I
No,
come
let
from
me get-
I'm waiting to answer.
I give you personal answer कि जो idea है कि पैसा कमाया उसमें. Let me be very crude about this thing कि 2001 I became active on this issue. ठीक है. तो जो भी मुझे कोई बोलता है कि आपने ये किया पैसा कमाया, कि 2001 से लेकर के 2021 तक का तेरा बैंक का स्टेटमेंट निकाल, मैं अपने बैंक का स्टेटमेंट निकालूंगा कितना पैसा मैंने जिंदगी में कमाया, and then we will exchange. ठीक है? You keep the money that I have made in last 20 years. Let me see how many people come and have. मैं अपना बैंक स्टेटमेंट वगैरह सीए को बुला करके कि 2001 से लेकर के 2000 तक अभी तक का कितना नोट मैंने कमाया सुभाष बोस से, और तुमने जितना कमाया मुझे तो मैं तुम्हें अपना देने को तैयार हूँ.
I remember it was actually in one of your earlier shows. See, the reality is that I can speak for myself. It has been, since I have full-time got into this, it has been a hand-to-mouth existence. No self-pity, no drawings for sympathy, but that is a statement of fact. It's a hand-to-mouth existence. In one of your shows, one of the Bose family members, one of the spokespersons, had challenged and made this accusation that you are making money in the name of Netaji. And I had thrown him the challenge on your show on national television. I think it was 8 or 9 p.m. show, that I am going to release last 5 years of my bank statements. If you can show me one penny where I have profited in the name of Netaji, I will quit doing what I am doing. But if you cannot show, you have to promise that you will come crawling to Delhi from Kolkata. And obviously he dropped the issue. But the thing is that such mindless allegations are made mostly by people who have not read our books, who don't understand the content, the substance of it. 90% of the people who engage with us are extremely supportive. Extremely supportive. They have stood by us for a number of years. We have been doing this for 20 years.
See, if there was not honesty in your purpose, one, I would not be sitting and doing this conversation.
Absolutely.
Sorry. But the other thing is that people would have automatically found it via your writings and your books. So there is a lot of research and a lot of evidence which is very compelling. Now let's come back to what's compelling this time around.
Right.
Every time there is some aspect which is compelling, which highlights certain facet. Did Netaji live beyond 18th of August 1945? Well, you have made compelling arguments in the conundrum to show yes. Did Netaji have a particular design, and was he politically also done? So you've done another work of his, which was the pre-independence work of Netaji and where his focus was. This talks about the Bose deception. Did he deliberately orchestrate his death with the Japanese,
Right.
so that he could come back eventually in a different form or place and come back to his country? Now, you are trying to make an argument, yes, but then somewhere just now you mentioned that वो अपने narrative में फंस गए. Now, do you have evidence, or does this book lead us to that direction?
Yes, we will go step by step. I will take some of the points. Anuj can explain some of the things.
So this general Shide aspect is a very interesting one. Saying that somebody who was supposed to have flown with him is claimed by the Chinese that he was shot dead on a different plane altogether. So that's what you are saying. The war historians, Chinese war historians.
Subhash was flying with him. The other way around. Subhash was flying with him. He was the plane was carrying Shide. So
Subhash was the co-passenger.
So Shide is the main person. So that person.
But that person was never in that plane.
Never in that plane, and according to the government of India, according to the Japanese, Shide and Subhash Bose died at the same place, same time, whatever. But according to the Chinese, Shide died elsewhere, probably.
And the plane landed in
away. The plane was, in the sea.
East China Sea. And 3 eyewitnesses,
I must tell you,
three different testimonies.
But before he started, let me just get a grueling side of it. When people talk, what has led to this? I mean, what we have done. I mean, what has led to this different story. But what has happened, that this also an example of what Subhash Chandra Bose is all about. Many of the very people whose name are taken with a lot of respect these days, because could be because of vote bank politics or whatever. When you go to the National Archives and you look for records, you hardly find records, because these people were not that great in the eyes of the British. So probably you will find one mention to them in one of the dispatches in the one particular month. Subhash Bose is somebody on whom, as of today, as we speak, Modi government released about 304 or 5 files from the PMO, MHA, ME and Cabinet Secretariat. The previous Manmohan Singh government was compelled by us, in a way, using the RTI, because we ran after them. We were compelled to release about 1,100, whatever, 200 files, which were linked to Subhash Bose directly, indirectly. Then in 1997, the Ministry of Defence released about 990 files on Subhash Bose and INA. And add to it are their files, I mean, insofar as death is concerned in America, which we have used in this book. We have used files for the first time from Taiwan. This is the first thing. Anybody has gone and located files in Taiwan. We have used file, of course, from the British side, and there are, of course, papers on Subhash Bose in Japan. There are papers about him in Italy. There are papers about, if you go Germany and Australia, of course, there's one relevant file. So this gentleman, a person has got so many files in so many countries. And that's what we have done for the last
about 3,000 files तो मैं roughly गिन ही सकता हूँ जितना आपने अभी तक गिना है.
And then roughly 2,200, 2,500 files is what we're talking about.
All the files and the references about the death mystery, be it an Australia file or the Indian file, the Taiwanese file, we have put everything together, and this has come out.
This has come out. So it's around the 18th of August 1945, and this entire
and the Russian angle, and of course the subsequent
the mystery of death and what happened. Yeah.
No, to add to his point about archival material, when Netaji escaped from India in 1941, after that the Indian press was gagged. there was no news of Subhash Bose in India. Indian papers were not publishing anything. They were not allowed to. And while writing the biography, I
Press was
discovered.
supposed to be free. Press is supposed to be gagged today. You are saying it was gagged then?
So, I was surprised and shocked to see the amount of coverage that Netaji was getting in the American newspapers throughout, big or small. Even in small town newspapers, there is reportage about Bose, what he is doing and who is meeting. He is building and creating an army, setting up a government, what he is doing, what he is broadcasting. The extensiveness of the coverage about Netaji in the American newspapers was a surprise to me at least. But coming back to the Shidei thing, I just remembered something amusing. I don't know if you are a movie buff. There was one Amitabh Bachchan movie called Main Azad Hoon. So Shabana Azmi, as a reporter, publishes a fictitious letter in a newspaper, and the writer's name is Azad. So now they have to discover Azad. Who is Azad? They have to create a character. So they pick up Amitabh Bachchan and train him. And so Amitabh Bachchan's first reaction, "Acha, मैं हूँ ही नहीं और मैंने चिट्ठी लिखा नहीं और वो आपने छाप दिया." So Shidei's story is like that. मतलब Shidei है ही नहीं नेताजी के साथ, but he died with Netaji. So that is a kind of thing. I mean, unreal stuff.
Let's say, okay, there was no General Shidei on the plane. There was a plane crash that happened. Now, perhaps Netaji was in the plane crash. Perhaps he survived. He had injury and he survived. My question to you in all your research is, did Netaji plan the escape or the fact that he wanted to get out of the radar? Or because the crash happened and he survived, did he say, all right, let's use this as an opportunity to declare me dead so that I can get out of the radar?
Yeah, that's a valid question.
So,
That's an
through
interesting
your
thing.
years of research, what have you come? Because one thing that comes to my mind is, if a person wanted to go underground, he could have gone underground.
Yeah.
Why would he have to orchestrate a plane crash? And to that time, to survive a plane crash itself came with its own risk, right? Because you may also pop it there, because you may not survive. So why would you want to do something like that?
So the answer I found is when I was going through these files, the British files, and the INA soldiers' memoirs and everything, is that the story goes back to the time when the INA had started retreating from the Arakan front, in the Bama front. The British allied armies were pushing back and they were retreating. So it was, I am talking about a time of say around March, April 1945. So that is when I find regularly the Japanese intelligence guys going and meeting with him. The liaison agency, Hikari Kikan, which was basically an intelligence outfit, they were regularly meeting with him. They were coming back and informing the chief of the Japanese Southern Army, and who was calling shots in this entire area. And that continued, and by May, the plan was ready. By May, the plan was ready. The question was how to enact it, what would be the final piece to make it more believable. I guess that would have been decided at the fag end of it. I don't think the plane crash story was thought at that time, but his escape and his moving out of the war theatre was decided in March, April at that time.
So March, April 1945, you believe that the Japanese had somewhere convinced Netaji, and Netaji has also come around that, listen, I have to vanish. I have to, something has to be orchestrated.
Netaji convinced him because he saw that Japanese are losing the war. Japanese had started losing the Pacific War very badly. So if Netaji, the other point which he saw and he clearly talked about is that there was a fallout between the Soviet Union and the UK and US. So they were going to split into two camps. He foresaw it and he clearly announced it, told his comrades there that if this is going to happen and if this happens, I am going to go to the Soviet and take their help because they are anti-imperialist by nature. So they are going to help me. And that was the plan.
So the Japanese could not have said, no, that like Subhash Bose could not have just vanished into thin air, because the onus would have been on Japanese to, explain it to the Allied force after the surrender. So probably the best way was to proclaim that he has died, to give out a story and then allow him to escape.
So then you're saying that this air crash just happened?
No, it not happened. But
or
actually
was there no air crash at all?
It's not
There
about,
was no air crash.
There was no air crash.
It's not about our saying, because now we don't have to get into the hypothesis, because Justice Mukherjee Commission had a proper inquiry done. So
Yeah.
and we support that report fully. And that report, like, they have concluded as much, that the entire story of a fake plane crash and fake death of Subhash Chandra Bose was planted by and engineered by Subhash Bose and the Japanese. And under the cover of this fake story, he went
But
to
the
Russia.
Justice Mukherjee Commission report was discredited
By the
right?
Congress party.
By the Congress party or the UPA government under
Yes.
Dr. Manmohan
Yes.
Singh. You think this government should bring back that report?
That is our recommendation number 1 here.
They should. That's the first point. But that's the first step. That's the first step, not only because they need to do the right thing to Netaji, but also to bring to light what a tremendous fraud was imposed on our country by deliberately lying to the cabinet of Dr. Manmohan Singh. So the sequence was like this. Justice Mukherjee submits his report and he clearly says there was no plane crash, Netaji did not die in it, the remains which are preserved in the Renkoji temple in Tokyo, they are not his. Clear statement. Now, the brief to Justice Mukherjee, the terms of reference as it is called, was if he did not die, find out what happened to him. Justice Mukherjee did not get the time and opportunity and many facilities which he required to answer those two questions. Now, if he is coming out with categorical answers to 2 out of 4 questions, any logical, sane government with good intentions would give him more time and help him out.
Correct.
On the contrary, the UPA government said, oh, he is not able to find the answers to the other 2 questions, so this is an incomplete inquiry. I mean, what kind of logic is that? But anyway, so on that premise, they stopped the inquiry, that he is not able to give answers to the other 2 questions, that what happened to him.
But slowly and gradually, those who, many people who you believe actually met Netaji in Bharat much after 1945 are also not amongst us to even give testimony or so somewhere do you believe that the government
some
of
of
the
them
day should
appeared
take
before
these
Mukherjee. Before Mukherjee, we have the access. I mean, for example, we don't have to go. We 50s. I mean, whatever happened in 50s, the Japanese, when they were alive in 70s, they appeared before the commission committee. So they give witness. So we have gone by records. So this is not our, this is not based on hearsay. So we are going by records from
so
this.
you got
we
those
have cited
testimonial records also.
everything. We have everything drawn from records, you know, from the government side. And not only that, we have given images of records. For example, suppose we are making a big statement about, let's say, the government of India did this wrong. Let me give an idea, like in terms from the, you know, from the point of the evidence point of view. The evidence goes like this: that when the report of the news of Subhash Bose's death came, the British had a feeling there is something wrong, because they have why for in the world they should not release on the day he died. So they are taking 4 days later. They have decided to go public with it. So they had an inquiry done. So there were multiple inquiries, but one of the major inquiry was done by the IB and military put together. Combined section was the name given to it. That section which did the inquiry. So probably at the beginning of 46, the British intelligence, we have given the records and even the copies of these records. They came to a kind of conclusion that the report of the death was based entirely on oral evidence. People were saying there was no dead body, no picture of dead body. How do you prove the person has died? So, but the problem with the oral evidence, it was contradictory. So somehow around that time, this feeling came among the British investigator that to confirm the oral witness, you need to go to Taiwan where the plane crash took place and specifically look for the hospital and the records, because Japanese themselves said, you know, we gave a certificate of death, so it must be there. For whatever reason, the British were not able to do that kind of inquiry. Maybe they did. We don't have access to those records. So whatever records have become available, they were not able to do that inquiry. Now, in 1946, a non-state actor, somebody who was linked to the Congress party, he under the cover of a journalist. This gentleman was sent, we can easily make out, to Taiwan to do the inquiry. And if not then, and he gave a report to Government of India, which has vanished. But in 51, by 51, we have given citation of a record noted by then the Foreign Secretary, and he said Panditji has been informed about this. So we have given the image of record. By 1951, the Government of India was fully aware that the records in Taiwan are not supporting the plane crash theory. So what the reaction of the government was? To climb up, not to talk about it, to hush things up. So then the entire story, beginning 1951 till about Mukherjee Commission report coming out, is all about various committee and commission trying to go to Taiwan, do an inquiry, and the Government of India is coming in the way.
But because you claim you have cited two letters written by Jawaharlal Nehru to Suresh Bose and also to
Right.
Amiya Bose, where Panditji is actually saying that I have your letter dated the 12th of May. This is 13th of May 1962. You asked me to send proof of the death of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I cannot send you any precise and direct proof,
That's
but all the
correct.
circumstantial evidence that has been produced and which has been referred to in the inquiry committee's report has convinced us of the fact that Netaji has died.
Yes. So that's a very vague answer. That's a very vague answer.
But 1951, it was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. If you are saying that they sent people out there and they couldn't find any conclusive evidence,
Yeah.
then why is
There
Netaji
is the
here in
conceit.
1962
So we have to
saying
go
that
back to a little. We have to go back a little bit.
Huh.
In 1946, when all these allied inquiries were being done, and none of them were conclusive, none of them took the stand definitely that Netaji died in the plane crash. These reports were available to Pandit Nehru, but more importantly available to Sardar Patel, because Sardar Patel was the home member or the
Correct.
home minister.
Correct.
And IB and the police were reporting to him, not to
Correct.
Pandit Nehru.
Correct.
So he was in a better place to assess the seriousness or the gravity of the information coming in.
Right.
And he was not convinced. So when Panditji gave a categorical statement that we have done all the inquiries that needed to be done and we
Right.
don't need anything more, I am convinced that Subhas died, Sardar Patel refused to play along.
We have given that record in the book.
Oh, you've given that record in the
Yes.
book where Sardar Patel has refused
He
to
refused to play
along.
along.
Okay.
He said that it's not sufficient, it's not enough, we don't have conclusive evidence on any side. So from that point onwards, when Panditji started announcing to the world, declaring to the world that Subhas has died, to Suresh Bose's letter in 1962, where he is saying that I don't have any direct evidence. So on one hand, he is saying I am completely convinced, then convinced on the basis of what, one may ask. Circumstantial evidence means just contradicting eyewitness statements, nothing more.
Correct.
There is nothing else as circumstantial evidence. But on the other hand, more important is Gandhiji's position from 1946
Right.
till the time he was alive.
Ah.
Now, Gandhiji's first reaction, he was emotionally very upset about
Right.
the news, and he denied, he declined to believe it. But then certain things happened, and after a few months, when he met Habibur Rahman and other INA soldiers,
Right.
and he had a talk inside with the high command, Congress high command leaders,
Right.
he changed his position. He said that after I have met them and discussed things with them, I am now convinced that Subhas has died, and the whatever I said earlier
Right.
stands cancelled.
Right.
Now, this was all done and dusted. Publicly, he has taken a position, and that is what people like his biographers like Louis Fisher has quoted.
Right.
What Louis Fisher was privy to, and he should have written about in his biography of Gandhiji, when he discussed this point, he suppressed. So, Anand, the common thread throughout the story of
Suppress.
80
Suppression
years
is a
is
common
suppression
thread.
of facts.
Suppression of fact, because I get this passage where Sardar Patel has said HM is Sardar Patel,
Right.
considers
Home member,
that,
home member.
okay, sorry, considers that it would not be possible to dispose of the questions by making a reference to the statement issued by the Honorable Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. This statement has been subsequently criticized by the members of the forward bloc and is based mostly on the statements made by Habibur Rahman, but about which he was subsequently hesitant. So HM considers that the following replies would be appropriate. A, no, and B, government are not in a position to make any authoritative statement on this question.
Yes, on the Subhash Bose's death.
Subhash Bose.
So same set of
what
papers.
we are
Same set
discussing,
of
these are
papers.
the original sins. I mean, so we have multiple sins. So our book is mostly about year 2000 plus onwards. So we are not, I mean, Panditji like is in heavens like for last 60, 70 years.
Correct.
We are
So
mostly
what
concerned-
Panditji did between the 50s and the 60s is not in our control, but what was done actually between 2000 and 2014.
yes, we are concerned more about that, and we are more concerned about what Modi ji will do now. So the thing is that the government of India, try to prevent any inquiry from taking place in Taiwan. So they came up with a lot of kind of nonsense.
Right.
For example, and they concealed the obstruction of justice for which Nixon was booted out. So they did the same thing, but they were much more smarter than Nixon by the. So for example, in 1956 they had an inquiry done in Taiwan, and British government involved the Taiwanese, and report was given to us.
Right.
And the report also raised a question mark about Subhash Bose's death.
Right.
Hushed up. And then when it came to Justice Mukherjee Commission, the government was not willing that he should
Right.
go and do the inquiry in Taiwan. I made it possible. I contacted the Taiwanese authorities and I wrote them an email, and they responded to me that we have no, as far as we are concerned, there was no plane crash. I forwarded my emails to Justice Mukherjee, and through me, Justice Mukherjee was able to have a direct link with the Taiwanese government, because government didn't want him to have
Correct.
that, because very angry. In fact, they were we have given a lot of information about it from the government records. Eventually, it came down to seeking of records. So Justice Mukherjee made clear, in writing, he asked Government of India, look, I want to have these cremation and hospital records. So you take it from either from the Japanese or take from the Taiwanese side.
Right.
So just before, probably when Justice Mukherjee was about to go to Taiwan, so we have an India Taipei Association in our
Correct.
in Taiwan, which is basically our embassy. The name
Right.
is different. So they sent reply to Delhi, and it was given to Justice Mukherjee that we have talked to the government here in this country. They have no such records. Cremation records are not available. So very clearly, the head of the ITA, who eventually became our foreign secretary, he wrote this thing that we have no information.
Even that letter is in the book. We have
That is
published
book. That's what I'm
Correct.
thinking. I know Mr. Gokhale is a very big shot, so
Yeah,
I'm
so
saying his
everything
name.
is in the book. It's
Record is
chronicled.
everywhere. He
Okay,
cannot
okay.
escape. Mr. Gokhale wrote that letter. He not once, 2-3 times, and he said in as many words. So we have spoken to the government here, and they don't have the cremation record. Justice Mukherjee goes to Taiwan. He has a consultant. He speaks with the Taiwanese Foreign Ministry, and lo and behold, the entire cremation record for that year is made available. And there is no Subhash Bose, there is no Shadai. The story is gone.
Yeah, so
The government of India till
everybody else is mentioned there. All the other cremations are mentioned, but these two cremations are not mentioned.
They are not mentioned.
Nobody who supposedly died in that plane crash was cremated in Taiwan. Only Japanese are saying so. The doctor was caught. Doctor issued a fixed death certificate of Subhash Bose's death in 1988. So gentleman who treated Subhash Bose, he was alive. He died in 2008. So he basically Mukherjee also exposed him that he produced a fake certificate of Subhash Bose's death. And do you know how he issued the fake certificate? Another non-state actor who was helping government of India, former advisor of Indira Gandhi, he was the one who went to Japan and he obtained this fake certificate. Fake certificate. So it's like it's a rabbit hole. You go into it. I mean, even in a coherent discussion not possible on this, because so many
I think one of the biggest services that, and we've got to draw this conversation to a close on this part, that one of the biggest services to the country can be that if this person's story can be solved, and I hope that there is enough and more that compels the government of the day to not just reopen the files, but more importantly, bring back the Justice M.K. Mukherjee Commission report.
Yeah.
Because it answers 2 out of the 4 questions.
Yes.
And also gives you the pathway to answer the remaining 2.
He has given the direction.
It gives you, that's exactly, I said the pathway is there. So it's just that we've got to pick on the breadcrumbs, and perhaps it will lead us to the destination. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perhaps
It's a pleasure.
You've done your bit here, and let's hope that this one resonates in the right corridors and Netaji finally does get his due in the annals of our history, chronicled right. That's what
we are fighting for.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj. Thank you, Chandrachur.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.